I'm Mrs. Scott.
Yes, I know. I'm Ron Kirby.
Jane Wyman walked into a television studio in 1961 and filmed something that changed everything. It was supposed to be just another episode of Checkmate, but what happened during that scene broke her. For decades, nobody talked about what really occurred on set that day. The episode aired, but Jane never forgot. She started refusing roles, walking away from money, and shocking Hollywood executives. By 1962, she had vanished from television completely. The scene was so disturbing that it haunted her for years. What happened during those final moments of filming will shock you. Jane Wyman came into the world on January 5, 1917, as Sarah Jane Mayfield in St. Joseph, Missouri, and her life felt unsteady from the start. Her father worked long hours as a meal company laborer, and her mother typed medical notes for a doctor just to keep the family going. Money was always short, and the tension inside the house only grew as her father's drinking got worse. By October 1921, she was just 4 when everything split apart. Loud fights filled the tiny rooms, and the divorce left her confused and frightened. Then, in March 1922, things fell even harder. Her father died at only 27 from a stomach ulcer, and suddenly, she was an orphan. She was taken in by Emma and Richard Folks, neighbors in St. Joseph who seemed strict from the moment she stepped inside their house. Life under the Folks family never felt warm. Richard, a chief of detectives, believed in discipline more than comfort. Sarah Jane learned quickly that there was no play after 7 in the evening, and barely any socializing at all. The house felt tight, her freedom even tighter. She was only 7 when she fully became their responsibility, but the rules had already left a mark. She watched the older children move more freely while she was corrected for even small things. Teachers and friends knew her as Sarah Jane Folks because she took the surname everywhere, even on her first marriage certificate. She carried that name like a reminder of how little space she had to breathe during those early years. In 1924, her mother remarried a man named Horace Folks, and Sarah Jane's identity shifted again. By 1930, the family packed up and moved to Los Angeles, hoping for something better in the middle of the Great Depression. But the city was not kind at first. She was 13, lonely, and out of place. Her classmates mocked her Midwestern accent and her thrift store clothes, and every insult made her quieter and more self-conscious. She tried to blend in, but the teasing made her feel like she did not belong anywhere. The move promised a new beginning, yet it brought fresh wounds that piled on top of the old ones. Her mother, hoping to change their luck, took her to Hollywood for casting calls when she was only 8. Sarah Jane went in with bright eyes, but she walked out again and again with disappointment. Studios closed their doors without giving her a chance. Looks mattered more than her spark, and she learned early how cold the system could be. These rejections sank deep, but they also planted a fire that stayed inside her. A fire that told her to prove everyone wrong someday. As she grew older, she realized how much her childhood shaped her. The strict rules, the teasing, the failed auditions, the feeling of being unseen. All of it pushed her to keep going even when she felt small. Those early hurts became fuel, and the determination she carried into adulthood came from surviving each one of those moments. By 1932, at just 15, she dropped out of Lafayette High School and left Missouri behind. She had no proper training, but she had a dream. She joined a vaudeville roadshow as a pony, one of the young chorus dancers who worked endless hours in little theaters across the Midwest. Some days, they performed nearly 12 hours straight. The food was bad, the sleep was worse, yet she kept dancing. She took any job she could between shows: manicurist, switchboard operator. anything to stay alive while she chased a future she could barely picture. Her early film credits in The Kid from Spain and Gold Diggers of 1933 were tiny, but they were steps forward. During these years, she used the name Jane Durrell, trying to reinvent herself while she worked her way up from the bottom. Then came 1933. She was only 16 when she secretly married Ernest Eugene Wyman, a 20-year-old salesman. She lied about her age because Missouri required brides to be 18, and she wanted freedom more than anything. The marriage turned rough quickly. Ernest became jealous and controlling, hating her ambitions. After 2 tense years, they divorced in 1935. Oddly, she kept his last name. It clung to her and eventually became the name Hollywood would know forever. It was a risky chapter, but it marked her first real step toward an identity that belonged to her. By 1936, when she was 19, she signed with Warner Brothers for $65 a week. It was less than men made, but it was a foothold. Producer Brian Foy put her in tiny parts, even as a background receptionist in Gold Diggers of 1937. The studio typecast her as the sweet girl next door, while behind the scenes she posed for the sweater girl publicity shots the studio forced on many young actresses. These photos were meant to attract men to theaters, not to highlight talent. It was humiliating, but she pushed through, appearing in 13 films in 1937 alone. She worked non-stop, proving herself one small role at a time. Her breakout year came with struggle, too. Warner Brothers exploited her image, but she kept going, landing her first real leading part in Public Wedding. She became known for working at a pace that could exhaust anyone else. She learned how to survive in a world that tested her at every turn. In 1938, she finally got her first speaking role in Brother Rat, working alongside Ronald Reagan. For the first time, people could see her talent clearly. Behind the scenes, she fought another battle. She went on strike to demand better pay because women earned half of what men did for the same work. Her protest exposed the unfair gap and made headlines, marking her as one of the early women willing to speak up for equality. It was a brave move that started shifting the conversation inside Hollywood. Then came Tailspin in 1939. The movie released on February 10th, and she stunned critics with a dramatic monologue that revealed emotional depth no one expected. Variety singled her out, calling her moment a standout in a simple B picture. The film only made $3,200 in its first week, but her performance cut through the noise. Still, she remained stuck in sidekick roles because the studio did not know how to use her properly. Private Detective and other small films kept her busy, but they gave her little room to grow. Even so, she kept delivering scenes that showed she was capable of far more. In 1940, she teamed with Reagan again in An Angel from Texas. Their chemistry sparked rumors, and although the movie moved quickly, she found herself frustrated. Director Ray Enright reduced her role to comic relief. She complained, but she had little power. Her salary was still modest, and she had no voice in negotiations yet. Even while the public started noticing her charm, she felt herself shrinking behind the scenes. Bad Men of Missouri came next in 1941. She played a fiery sister in a Western, even though she feared animals. She performed her own horse-riding stunts with shaky nerves and once fell hard during a take. The set was chaotic with fights and action happening almost daily, yet she stayed in the middle of it, determined not to be seen as weak. Her courage earned new respect, and people began to see her as more than a chorus girl or a pretty face. Then came Larceny, Inc. in 1942. This time, she wanted something more. She pushed for script input, a shocking request for a woman at Warner Brothers. Writers rarely took suggestions from actresses, but she insisted until a few changes were made. Her role shined, and the film grossed over $1 million. Her intelligent performance and boldness brought her a contract renewal and a reputation for having a sharp mind behind the charm. By 1943, she stepped into Princess O'Rourke with Bob Hope, and the film earned $3 million. But the set carried a dark moment. A director made inappropriate advances, and she walked off. It was a dangerous move in that era. Studios silenced women who complained, but she refused to stay quiet. The film was delayed a year because of production chaos and legal issues, and the scandal rippled quietly through Hollywood. Those who worked with her whispered admiration for her bravery, even though few could openly support her. Jane Wyman and Ronald Reagan met on the set of Brother Rat in 1938, and everything between them moved fast, even though Reagan kept saying he needed more time. Wyman was only 21 and deeply attached to him, but he was 27 and kept stepping back. Then things took a dark turn. One night, she swallowed a bottle of pills and left him a goodbye note. Reagan rushed to the hospital, terrified. She refused to see him, and that pushed him to finally agree to marriage. So on January 26, 1940, they stood inside the tiny Wee Kirk o' the Heather Chapel in Glendale and became husband and wife. People later said the marriage was sealed by panic instead of love, and Wyman herself admitted she regretted the moment almost right after the wedding. Over time, she even told friends that Reagan felt cold, quiet, and boring, and that she had trapped them both in something neither fully understood. Life moved forward anyway. In 1941, they adopted Maureen, and in 1945, they adopted Michael. Wyman's career was rising fast. She was performing for troops in Hollywood Canteen in 1944, while Reagan stayed home because his eyesight kept him out of active service. At the same time, his work with the Screen Actors Guild kept pulling him into meetings. Wyman said she felt alone most nights. She was winning attention in Hollywood. Reagan was losing it. The difference stung her, and it started to show at home. Then another layer of pressure began. During the Lost Weekend in 1945, she earned praise, but behind the scenes, Reagan was secretly working with the FBI under the code name T-10. He and Wyman gave federal agents names of actors they believed had communist ties. Records show Reagan started helping them in 1941, and by 1943, he was reporting on anti-Semitic remarks and suspected political activity inside the Union. The secrecy made Wyman uneasy. She felt watched in her own home and worried that even her friends were part of some list. The paranoia slowly chipped away at whatever trust the marriage had left. By 1946, they were both cast in Stallion Road. They hoped the film would lift their careers, but it became a failure. Money felt tight. Wyman was exhausted from pregnancies and long nights with the kids. Reagan spent more hours talking politics than listening to her. Friends remembered her whispering that she felt trapped in a life that kept draining her. The movie failed. The marriage cracked with it. Then the hardest moment came. On June 26, 1947, Wyman gave birth to their daughter, Christine. She arrived early and lived only a few hours. Wyman was shattered. She blamed Reagan's constant absences and felt abandoned in her grief. While she mourned, he was filming That Hagen Girl. The distance between them widened until they finally separated in 1948. In July 1949, the divorce became official. Wyman's reason was simple on paper: mental cruelty. Behind that line were 9 years of fear, loss, pressure, and two people moving in opposite directions. Her career, though, kept rising. The yearling came in 1946 and changed everything for her. She shot it in Florida during a brutally hot summer. She had to learn a local dialect and spend months in the swampy heat. The whole shoot stretched almost 10 months. 32 animals were trained for the movie, including 5 fawns that rotated through scenes. Director Clarence Brown pushed her with up to 21 takes for a single moment. Wyman wanted her character to feel worn down by life. She even fought the studio when they tried to make her wardrobe more glamorous. She wanted honesty, not beauty. That choice earned her an Oscar nomination and respect from people who had never taken her seriously before. Then came Johnny Belinda in 1948. She played a deaf-mute woman who is raped, and the role consumed her. She studied sign language for 6 months. She sealed her ears with wax to shut out sound, and lived with that silence during filming. She barely spoke off-set. The assault scene was shot at least 20 times, each one draining her, until she broke down in tears. It was the first Hollywood film allowed to show rape after strict code rules softened. Her performance won the Best Actress Oscar. It also left her emotionally shaken for years. In Stage Fright in 1950, things turned rough again. Hitchcock wanted her character plain and unnoticed. Wyman, insecure after her Oscar win, secretly used extra makeup. Hitchcock caught her and exploded. Crew members spread rumors that she was becoming a diva. On top of this, she spent weeks learning a Cockney accent. But the scandal overshadowed the work. Even so, audiences loved her performance and said she held her own next to Marlene Dietrich. Then came The Blue Veil in 1951. She played a widowed nanny, and the role was heavy. She worked 80-hour weeks and smoked through the stress. One day, she collapsed on set. Doctors said she was exhausted and had pushed herself too far. Production halted. When she returned, she went straight back into long days. The film became a big success, but her collapse became a quiet warning about how hard she pushed herself to stay on top. Magnificent Obsession arrived in 1954. She played a blind woman who slowly regains her sight. She trained for weeks with her eyes bandaged to learn how to move without vision. The movie earned $18 million, and her chemistry with Rock Hudson made her a major star. Off-set, she guided Hudson through fame, teaching him how to stay steady in a world that could crush him. But her own personal life was falling apart. Her marriage to Fred Karger crumbled under jealousy and tension. Their fights made headlines. Wyman carried the weight quietly, but the pain followed her everywhere. Her divorce from Reagan had happened years earlier, but the ripples continued. She filed the papers on June 28, 1948, and the divorce was finalized in July 1949. She accused him of mental cruelty, and that claim shaped the future more than she knew. Reagan later signed California's first no-fault divorce bill, partly because of what happened between them. She escaped Hollywood noise by renting a quiet home in Palm Springs. The move shocked people because most stars stayed near Los Angeles for publicity. Wyman chose peace instead. After that, she starred in So Big in 1953. She discovered major script changes that cut down her role. She demanded reshoots and fought back until the scenes were restored. Her confidence surprised even her co-star, Sterling Hayden. Critics said she glowed in the film. One paper called her spark undying. That fight showed she was done being pushed around. Her marriages to Fred Karger came and went. They married in 1952, divorced in 1955, remarried in 1961, and split for good in 1965. Their relationship was full of rumors, jealousy, and old wounds. Wyman once said he reminded her of her father in ways she could not escape. After the final divorce, she never married again. She chose her work and her independence. In 1955, she starred in All That Heaven Allows with Rock Hudson, playing a widow judged harshly for loving a younger man. The story echoed her own loneliness after Reagan. Critics said she captured heartbreak without looking weak. The film became a classic. Even then, she felt trapped by sad roles and wanted something different. So she moved to television. From 1955 to 1958, she hosted and produced Jane Wyman Presents The Fireside Theater. She earned $100,000 each season and guided 187 episodes. It was one of the first filmed anthology shows run by a woman. She dealt with hot flashes and memory lapses due to menopause, hiding it from the producers while standing in front of millions of viewers. The show became #1 in its time slot. Her calm leadership made her a pioneer, and she proved she could succeed far beyond the image Hollywood tried to give her. Jane Wyman stepped into 1959 with the same quiet fire she had carried since her early film days, but now something inside her had changed. When she joined NBC's Summer Playhouse pilot, people expected her to show up, smile, and read her lines the way most actresses did at the time. Instead, she rewrote her character's dialogue and pushed for control that almost no woman in television dared to ask for. Executives were stunned, but they agreed. She shaped scenes with her own voice and forced the industry to admit she was no longer a passive performer. She was becoming a creator. By then, most actresses simply accepted whatever script they were handed. Yet Wyman insisted on influence. Her choices shaped the final episode and hinted at a shift that would later help women claim real space behind the camera. As the early 1960s arrived, Wyman kept stretching herself. She showed up in Wagon Train in 1962 as a pioneering female doctor, a role that felt bold in a decade where women were still boxed into gentle housewives. And then came the shock. Hollywood expected her to accept the lead role in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962. It was a twisted part that leaned into fear and cruelty, but Wyman rejected it without hesitation. She said she was tired of scripts that turned older actresses into punchlines, playing what she called senile old ladies or murderers. Producers were stunned. Her refusal spread through the industry like a quiet spark, reminding other actresses that they were allowed to say no too. Around that same time, she stepped into Disney's world for Pollyanna in 1960. She played Aunt Polly with a cold dignity the script wanted to push even further, but she fought back. She asked for softer edits, knowing that one harsh role could trap her for the rest of her career. Disney was famous for tight control, yet even he bent when she insisted the character needed warmth. That small change kept her from being locked into the icy matriarch parts she feared. It also showed everyone in the studio that she could shape a film from the inside. Yet while her work looked steady, her health was slipping. In 1961, she appeared on Checkmate and delivered a monologue about injustice that hit viewers hard. What they did not know was that she was pulling from painful memories of earlier roles that had forced her to reenact trauma. She was also battling type 1 diabetes, a disease she had lived with since childhood. Chase scenes became too difficult. Stunt doubles stepped in. Doctors warned her to slow down, but she kept working until her body finally pushed back. By 1962, she appeared on The Investigators and let her frustration with Hollywood spill into interviews. She said women over 40 were offered nothing but tired stereotypes, and that blunt truth upset many people. Some agents stopped calling. Producers avoided her, but other actresses paid attention. Her honesty helped break open a conversation about age and sexism long before it became acceptable to talk about it. Soon after that, she stepped away from the industry. It was a quiet exit, but one that changed the landscape around her. When she left Hollywood at 45, she moved to Rancho Mirage and found peace in painting desert landscapes. Her art raised thousands for charity, but something deeper was happening behind the scenes. She was attending private therapy sessions where she worked through the wounds left by her divorce from Ronald Reagan in 1948 and the loneliness she carried from childhood. She rarely spoke of these things publicly. Friends later said she spent decades unraveling feelings of abandonment and betrayal. Her silence became a form of healing, a way to rebuild herself in a place far from bright lights. Even though she remained famous, she kept surprising people. She refused a crossover appearance on the Beverly Hillbillies and said the show was demeaning to serious actresses. Many thought it was just artistic pride, but there was more beneath it. In 1958, she had converted to Catholicism, and her new faith shaped her sense of dignity. Certain roles felt wrong to her. She did not want to be part of something that mocked the profession she had fought to elevate. Her refusal created distance between her and the lighter world of slapstick comedy, but it strengthened the line she had drawn for herself. Her last film, How to Commit Marriage, came in 1969. She worked alongside Bob Hope, and production seemed smooth until a storm broke behind the scenes. She fired her makeup artist after claiming she looked older than she was. Crew members whispered about her fear of aging and how the pressure of maintaining her image had grown heavier after her divorces. Losing control of her appearance felt like losing control of her identity. The tension lingered even after the replacement arrived. The set became an echo of her private insecurities spilling into her professional world. In the 1970s, she put her energy into philanthropy, especially the Arthritis Foundation. She lived with rheumatoid arthritis herself, so she understood the pain. She raised millions through telethons with stars like Lucille Ball and Bob Hope. But inside her home, she fought quieter battles. In 1970, she burned all of Ronald Reagan's letters in a symbolic gesture to close their long chapter. She did it alone, letting the flames swallow memories that had both shaped and haunted her. Friends said she called it a release. That moment revealed how hard she had tried to move forward, even while helping others through charity work. Her return to acting came in 1971 with a guest role on My Three Sons. She had lived lines about widowhood and loss, and viewers did not know those words came from her real life. In the years ahead, she would face the death of her daughter Maureen in 2001 and Ronald Reagan in 2004. Even when offered full series roles, she refused. She preferred her quiet ranch, her animals, her paintings, and her faith. Hollywood no longer held the same pull. Then everything changed again in 1981 when she stepped into Falcon Crest. At 64, she stunned CBS by negotiating a $1.6 million per season deal. She out-earned the stars of Dallas and Dynasty, who made between $1.2 and $1.5 million. More shocking was her demand for script veto power and co-producer credit for all 208 episodes she appeared in. These conditions gave her real authority over Angela Channing's arc. Executives were caught off guard. Most actors simply signed contracts. Wyman was building a role and a legacy on her own terms. Her scenes with Robert Foxworth became iconic. In one intense wine-tasting scene in 1982, she smashed a prop bottle over his head. The moment looked wild on screen because it felt wild in person. Her reputation for being headstrong and fiercely protective of her character made every confrontation electric. Foxworth later said she was both terrifying and thrilling to work with. And that mix helped Falcon Crest gain the dramatic punch that defined it. Her health, though, continued to wear her down. She had surgery in January 1986 and missed 2 episodes. She collapsed during a live monologue in 1988 due to diabetes and liver problems. Doctors told her to stop acting, but she returned anyway. She pushed through season 9 even when stand-ins filled in for her weaker days. Her refusal to step back became its own story, a quiet show of stamina that inspired those around her. When the 1990 finale came, she wrote her own 10-minute soliloquy about legacy and power. Even though she had missed much of the season, she fought to be present for the final episodes. Cast members said she often gathered them in prayer circles before difficult scenes, something uncommon on any set. It was her way of grounding herself when her health threatened to pull her away again. She won a Golden Globe in 1983 for her work on Falcon Crest. She also surprised everyone by boycotting press events in 1989. She chose silence over publicity, dignity over spectacle. By the time she retired in 1993, she had already begun fading from public life. She spent her remaining years in Palm Springs, painting and hosting friends until her death in 2007. Her life narrowed into something quiet and peaceful. Her final years were heavy with physical struggle. Severe arthritis kept her in a wheelchair. Diabetes complications grew worse. Yet she kept mentoring young actors through long letters and private guidance. When she passed away on September 10, 2007, at the age of 90, she left behind a legacy built on resilience, stubborn independence, and a refusal to accept roles or expectations that made her feel small. Even after her death, her legacy sparked debates. Some people repeated old rumors that she left television because of a controversial scene, but the real reason traced back to a traumatic episode in 1961 that simulated a rape. She walked away from degrading roles and rebuilt her identity through more meaningful work. Over her lifetime, she completed 83 films, 2 TV series, 1 Oscar, and 4 Golden Globes. She earned her Walk of Fame stars in 1960, and they belonged to her alone, not because she once married Ronald Reagan, but because she carved her own path with grit and quiet force.